On the Maggie Mo Show.
This episode is, I think, probably the darkest episode yet. I interview my mother. And I think it's worth tuning in to hear how we go from being war enemies to shopping buddies. Because as I referenced later in the episode, I think when people see my mom and I today, they tend to think, oh, like mother-daughter besties, just going shopping, just getting lunch, getting mani-pedis. And it's like, yeah, we do that now, but it was not always like that, believe you me. So you're going to hear a little bit about my mom and her kind of relationship with alcohol and substances, growing up with her alcoholic father, but more so, because it's the Maggie Mo Show, what it was like living with me in active addiction. And I have to say, this is very, dare I say, sobering to listen to at points. There are a lot of tears. She talks a lot about me being sick as a kid and how she never gave up on me. And I think, I'm already crying. I think when you've been sober for a certain amount of time, it can be really easy to romanticize and glorify our addiction days. You think of the funny times, the good times, oh, remember this? Oh yeah, oh, it wasn't so bad. But talking to my mom hits you in the face with it was so bad. She didn't even recognize me. And again, I think I remember, I queued up a lot of the questions. I knew the story, but when you hear it from her perspective, I did hear things that I'd never heard before in a hard way, but in a good way. So it's a good one, guys. Can't wait for everyone to fall in love with my mom because I know how much I love her. You're gonna love her. She's the best. And yeah, she never gave up on me. And she'll give some advice at the end about what to do if you're living with someone. And spoiler alert, she essentially says to just never give up on them. So I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for her. So please enjoy. I know it's like a downer. It's not a downer. It's good. You'll hear there's some funny stuff too. She talks about my dad. We get into some, you'll love it. Thank you guys.
Maybe I should have kept the dress on.
No, this is cute. You look great. Whoa, the Maggie Mo Show. Welcome. Today's you guys.
She just broke right in there.
I knew that you're the right audience for that moment. And so I'm glad to have you in the room with me. Today we have perhaps the most special guest we've ever had on the Maggie Mo Show.
Of 3 episodes.
No, hey, there have been 4. My mother, the beautiful Bonnie Sue Rule Mo. You don't have Rule in there anymore, no? So why did you, we'll get into it. So I wanted to talk today because, first of all, before we get into any of our history, you're the one that had the idea for this podcast.
I did, yes. Maggie's passionate about a lot of things, and one of them is sobriety. She always wants to talk about it and analyze it. And on Instagram, I had noticed an account, and I don't even know how, I don't know how it showed up, but it was about sober living. And I think there is a podcast connected to it. So I said to Maggie, you need to do this. Do a podcast about sobriety. Because I do think you should always follow your passion in whatever you do.
Absolutely.
Because that'll be what you're good at.
Definitely. No, that was really, I'll never forget getting that text from you when you said, it's your passion. Because it's funny, it's been a part of being sober for 9 years. You guys all know my story by now. I don't know if it's an interesting thing to describe as my passion, but when she said it, it kind of all clicked for me. yeah, that is the thing I'm most curious about and most fascinated by. I think I described it in a meeting recently before any of this, as the great fascination of my life. And I think that's a good way to phrase it.
Yeah.
So thank you for inspiring me, because this has been super fun for me and hopefully will help a lot of people
I
eventually.
hope so. Yeah.
Awesome. So you were born in Minnehaha or somewhere in Michigan in 1963.
No, I was born in St. Cloud, Minnesota in 1963. And my family moved around a fair amount throughout the Midwest. So I think we went from Minnesota to North Dakota to Wisconsin to Michigan, back to Minnesota by the time I was 11 years old, so 1974.
Wow. It's a lot of moving around. So and very shortly after that, you met my dad.
I did. I was 14 when I met your dad. We went to different middle schools, had mutual friends, and hung out one afternoon playing touch football. Yeah.
The way he tells it, which I should probably just have an episode with him for him to tell the story, but he says you tackled him, and he, in that moment, was kind of struck by you. Like, who is this?
Well, we were playing touch football, and I do remember tackling him. Not just because he was cute, but because I guess I had a competitive streak, too, that wanted to win.
That you do. That you definitely do. Which I've always really admired in you. That you're so much tougher than cute little Bonnie. That's something Mimi and I talked about on the episode. I don't know if you remember about how she says, people think I'm sweet little Valerie, and I'm not. And I think all three of us kind of struggle from that. People are like, oh, like precious little angel. And you're like, I'm not precious. You know? So you meet Dad, and you don't have to, again, we can cut anything. Something that struck me, if only because I've never known you to be someone to drink or do drugs or smoke or get into any substances, or really have that type of personality that would go overboard with that. Like, you've always been very healthy and very like, this is my breakfast, this is my lunch, this is my dinner, I go to bed at this time. I always saw you as being such a super moderate person. You always would say, moderation, Maggie, moderation.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. So, shortly after we moved to Michigan in 1974, when I was in 6th grade, my dad got a DUI and ended up going to treatment, is what they called it then. And my mom went to Al-Anon, and my dad became sober. And there was one instance in my memory where I had friends over and we were playing with a tape recorder, and we would tape things and then play it back. It was, technology, the only technology we had. And I remember my dad's voice was on there, and when we played it back, one of my friends said, "Oh, he sounds drunk." And I remember feeling humiliated. And honestly, even when he went to treatment and then like AA and Al-Anon, I feel like they were like on Friday nights when most families were like, I don't know. That's where we were. And I remember being like ashamed, and I didn't tell anybody, like, oh, that's just so embarrassing. And I was a new kid too.
Yeah.
So I never talked about it to anybody.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, I think probably later when my dad wouldn't drink, and say, oh yeah, he doesn't drink. So I actually had a pretty amazing growing up period, because my dad was sober that whole time until I went off to college. And maybe he started again, but I wasn't aware of that. So that's sort of that story. And then my own experiences. The first time I ever drank alcohol was in 9th grade. And it was New Year's Eve, and my friend had a party, and there were probably like 12 of us there, boys and girls though. And I drank enough to throw up.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Oh, I never knew that.
Yeah.
We're learning. There's breaking news
Yeah.
on the Maggie Mo show today.
I ever drank, I vomited in front of all my friends. Like, it was humiliating. And that was kind of it. But I feel like New Year's Eve was like the time to drink, because that's what we did.
Me.
Yeah. So 10th grade. Is that when I kissed Dad?
I don't know when. All I know is you were drunk.
I was.
First
It was
kiss.
a New Year's Eve.
Okay.
So it was either like 10th or 11th grade.
I feel like, sorry, as alcoholics, we have like holidays, you know, like
Okay.
like the Super Bowl, New Year's, like those were like my big, like, that's when I ended up in the hospital.
Well, I think it's a cultural thing. Because here we were like, I was 14 years old, and we were like, gotta get drunk. New Year's Eve. Anyway. So yeah, so my first we're finally getting to your question. My first kiss was when I was drunk on New Year's Eve. And Dad and I were really good friends at that point. We had French class together, and there was a lot of flirting. He always had a girlfriend, but he was always flirting with me. And so I think because I was drunk, I was like, hey, let's make out. So,
That's so cute.
yeah.
I love that.
And I probably honestly threw up that night too. Like, alcohol did not agree with my body.
So did it ever occur to you through Al-Anon or when your dad was in treatment that, oh, maybe this is something I should avoid? Or did you
No.
think this... Yeah, you were just like, that doesn't apply
I'm a
to me.
teenager.
Yeah.
Like, this is what we do.
Yeah.
I don't think I ever even thought for a second about alcoholism or, this didn't go well for my dad. Maybe I wasn't partying all the time. You know, I was getting more like the cheerleaders. Like, we were a little less wild than a lot of teenagers. But there were still times that we'd like sneak alcohol and from our parents. And yeah.
But I think because it was reserved to those specific incidents and like, oh, New Year's or this party, it wasn't something that necessarily monopolized all that much of your headspace at all. Like, you didn't go day to day like, oh, when am I going to drink again?
No. Yeah. No.
It was just like a party, like, oh,
Just
everyone's
felt
drinking,
that-
I'm going to
yes.
drink.
Yeah.
Like, I want to kind of be cool. It sounds like you did. I mean, I think most teenagers are like this, but, you know, being new, like, you had a lot of shame and embarrassment and probably trying to fit in if all your friends were drinking.
There was a big theme in my life, I think, because I moved around a lot as a little kid, or like all through elementary. There was a big part of an insecurity in me that wanted to fit in. And I never wanted to rock the boat or stand out. I just wanted to fit in.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's good things about that and really sad things too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, winning cutest single wasn't exactly. You don't want me to talk about cutest single?
No.
Well, no, but can I just say my favorite joke is always, so my mom won best looking and my dad won most athletic. And I got my dad's looks and my mom's athletic ability. Usually kills, usually goes over really well. But so, first kiss with dad, drunk. But there seemed to be a lot of like groundwork building up to this kiss.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So then you go to college, and did the drinking escalate?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes. I went to the University of Iowa. I pledged to sorority, and there were parties every weekend. Well, there was partying every weekend. But there were also a lot of like function parties, being a sorority or fraternity, you know, little sister to a fraternity. And so drinking was, although I think back then it's nothing like it is now.
Yeah.
And I know every older person will say that, but I do think it's increased because we would go out drinking Friday and Saturday. And now I think there might be a culture of almost every night. I don't know. But
All day, every day.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there were occasional brunches. So I do remember going to bed at like 10 a.m. because I'd been drinking since 6 a.m., like a brunch. Yeah, so there was a lot of that. And also I feel like the colleges really promote it.
Oh, interesting.
Because on Thursday night, it was called dollar draws. Like you could, no, not dollar draws, quarter draws. So you could get a beer for a quarter. So I'd like stick $1 in my pants and there's the night, right?
So that's like
But
82.
They wanted,
1980,
yeah, they wanted us to come and drink on Thursday nights. Because, anyway.
I know. No, actually, on the Josh episode, spoiler alert, we talk about how that's kind of a downfall of capitalism is the advantage it takes over alcoholics.
Oh, yeah.
Like with all the alcohol promotion all the time.
Yeah.
And just, well, if we're making money, and it's like, you're killing people.
Yeah.
So, but it sounds like you always kind of had the wherewithal to stop. It never became an everyday thing.
No. Well, I'll tell you what happened. So I went there for 2 years, and after 2 years of, it's so funny, because it was kind of living a normal college life.
Yeah.
Really. It wasn't anything extreme. But in my eyes, I hated myself. I hated it. I hated drinking every weekend. I got kind of like average grades. And after 2 years, I was like, this just isn't who I am. This isn't who I am. So I transferred. Dad had a lot to do with it too. I wanted to be closer to him. So I transferred and went to a small women's college, and I became a really serious student. And Dad was kind of my social life and the football team. And even though they partied, like, we just didn't. And so I lived a much healthier, but maybe less typical, last 2 years of college.
Yeah, so you kind of found, it sounds like that before you were very influenced by your surroundings and you kind of knew that about yourself. Like, if I stay around these people, it's just going to keep being the average grades and drinking more than I want to be drinking. But if I stick with Mike, who doesn't really drink, something Dad, because I used to ask him, like, well, why didn't you party in college? Why didn't you really drink? And he says, well, I signed a document that said I wouldn't. And I'm like,
so did I.
The document. Like, he's so sweet. But, like, think how cute that he took it seriously.
I know. He was the only one. Actually, going back to high school, again, it wasn't like my girlfriends and I were partying all the time. But that's, like, who I would sneak alcohol with was my girlfriend.
Yeah.
And that was something I also really liked about him because he was never a part of any of that. And it just felt really safe.
Yeah.
And I liked that.
And you stuck with a winner. Been married 38 years now. So around that time, do you remember anyone in college, though, feeling like, oh, that they're crossing, like, they might have an issue? Or feeling like, I'm not like that?
No, honestly, I think maybe my girlfriends would have said that about me.
Oh, interesting.
Because I think a lot of it has to do with my size, too. Mm-hmm. Like, I would have as many as them, but I was smaller. Or else it's just, honestly, like, maybe it's metabolism. Because I would get a lot more out of control than they would.
That's interesting.
Yeah. But then, honestly, I bet half of them are alcoholics. I don't know. Sorry, cut.
Well, no, it's okay. I do think that there's probably, people say between 10% and 25%.
Uh-huh.
And that's always what I'm trying to figure out.
Yes.
And also just all the forms it takes.
Yes.
Like, for example, because as I said in episode 1, whether or not you're someone who drinks every day, like, I think there's that cliche and kind of the societal definition of what an alcoholic is. And they would say, oh, someone who gets the shakes and needs vodka in their coffee. And it's like, that's not necessarily what it is. I don't know if I ever got to that place.
Right.
But it's once you start once you start drinking, can you stop?
Right.
You have the wherewithal to stop.
Right.
Or do you get in dangerous situations?
Right. Yeah.
So it sounds like...
I also think, it affects people differently because I remember waking up in the morning and thinking, everybody can't feel this way. Like, all those people out there who are drinking all the time, if they felt like I do right now, they wouldn't do it because I felt horrible. Not just, a little tired, little headache. Like, I would just be wiped out.
Yeah, just like
And honestly, I think all of those things are a blessing. It was a blessing because, I don't know.
Well, I also think if you were an alcoholic, you wouldn't let that morning stop it. You'd think, next time. Like, our mind can convince us of anything.
Yeah.
That's what I always thought. I always thought, oh, next time I'll figure it out and I'll learn my limits.
Yeah.
And that never happened.
Yeah.
So,
I also think it's kind of interesting to think about like college years or even high school. Sure, in high school, it wasn't like, oh, let's have like a little drink to feel old, sophisticated. It's like, let's drink as little as possible, get as hammered as possible. Like, what is that?
I think it's like the cool thing. I don't know. I think when you're young, you want to experience, well, and it's edgy because it's illegal.
That's true.
Unless it's 21.
That's true.
Was it always 21 or was it 18?
It was 19 back in 1980, whatever, when for me. So yeah, my freshman year, I had a fake ID.
That's crazy. But again, it's interesting because it sounds like you just want to keep up. So how did you, it sounds like you transferred to St. Kate's, you're dating Dad. Mm-hmm. You guys get engaged, you get married. Mm-hmm. At that point, what role does alcohol play in your
not
life?
much.
Yeah.
Not much.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I had kind of learned those freshman, sophomore years that this doesn't go well for me. Like, I was never hospitalized. It was almost, I was just embarrassed. I would think back about something I said to someone and go, oh,
yeah,
why did I say that? Like, and maybe I have a high shame factor.
But that's, again, something that as an alcoholic, you'd convince yourself won't happen this time.
Okay.
Almost, your disease will tell you almost anything to get you to drink again or keep drinking.
Okay.
Because I obviously had really embarrassing things happen that the next morning I'd feel terrible about. And then lo and behold, like, evening rolls around.
Yeah.
And, oh, it'll be fine this time. You'll be okay.
Yeah.
So
after we were married, it's not like we didn't drink. I don't remember any, like, times of waking up and feeling horrible but we weren't, like, sober and say, we are sober, I don't know, it just wasn't. And then I got pregnant 4 years later, I got pregnant with Maggie, and so I quit.
The most amazing thing.
I didn't drink through that pregnancy, and honestly, even after, I don't think I had even a glass of wine for years, because I remember thinking, what if I have to bring my baby to the hospital in the middle of the night and I've been drinking? Like, again, it's kind of like the shame. Like, I couldn't handle that. I couldn't handle being like a drunk mother. So I just didn't for years. And then I'd have, like, my drinking would be a glass of wine with Dad out to dinner. We never drank at home because I just didn't think that was good for kids to see.
I don't remember seeing it.
We never did. I mean, we'd have a party. If we had a party, we would. But there were things, I think, that I witnessed as a child that I didn't want my children to witness. And so I think that's why it's like, we're just not ever going to have alcohol at home. And
yeah. No, that all tracks. It sounds like, I mean, again, it sounds all very, like, normie through the lens of a normie. Like, this happened, so I'm not going to do it again. Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you're a sane person who's not an addict, you are going to
listen to
Yeah.
those moments of shame or listen to the things you'd seen in the past, and it will inform your decisions. If you're an addict or alcoholic, it so supersedes any of that that it can be hard to even remember the reasons
shame.
why. Yeah, the shame or the reasons
Yeah.
why you, wait, why wasn't I going to do this? I remember, like, during a time when I was like, no, I'm not drinking right now because of the whole, I had dated a guy, I had been recklessly alcoholic around him to the point that I threw my shoes at him at his brother's wedding. And, you know, that was the first time, and he broke up with me, and it broke my heart, because that was kind of my first love. I think that was the first person, like, this is crazy, but we were, like, talking about getting engaged the next year. You know, like, I thought I was so in love with this guy. And the fact that he broke up with me was, like, a little bit, almost enough to make me stop. I did just start popping a lot of pills, because I was like, well, at least I can do this. Like, no one's gonna get mad about this, you know? But then the night I drank again, I don't remember. Like, it was just, and then I remember as I was drinking being like, why wasn't I drinking? Like, that was weird. Like, you know, like, it's like, I don't know, because you ruined your life last time you drank, like, because you know, broke your heart, broke someone else's heart, embarrassed yourself in front of the entire family. It's crazy I'm so close with any of them. But yeah. So then you're raising these two daughters. So something interesting. So this is going to end up being a lot about me, and I'm sorry. It seems like you always knew I was an addict or alcoholic, like even before I did.
I don't think that I would put the term alcohol. Well, what age are we talking?
I mean, 2.
Yeah, okay, yeah, okay. But you were so extreme in everything. And it was something I couldn't relate to at all. And so I think because of that, it concerned me.
What kind of things did I show extreme behaviors around?
The Little Mermaid. But extreme. Like everyone go, oh, of course, everyone loved it, but it was extreme. There was just a lot of extreme. Yeah.
Because if I liked it, so what was the Little Mermaid thing? You played Little Mermaid one day when I was like, what, 10 months old?
Probably too little. Yeah, and it's all you ever wanted to do, and you had the little mermaid nightgown that you wore over except lots of little girls. That's not
but just, I would say, again, more.
Oh, for sure.
Ariel, more.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I've always been someone that, obviously, if I liked something, I was all in, wanted all of it, you know? So that was an early thing you noticed. And then when they prescribed me opiates, were you like, oh no? Or were
I was nervous. I was really nervous. Not because of you, but because I was a nurse and I knew enough. And yeah, that was really awful because I felt like I was kind of between a rock and a hard place because Maggie was in so much pain every day, wasn't going to high school. Like, it was just really hard. And in a way, I think it was, this might sound crazy, but part of it was harder for me because I knew everything you were missing. You didn't, because you didn't. You had no experience, but I had those high school experience of meeting my husband and just really, really great times of being young and having fun with your friends and
to be fair, I think we can now definitively say that even if I stayed at Sacred Heart, I don't think I would have found my husband there.
No
offense, if any of you were listening.
Anyway, I feel like I just hijacked it. You asked me a question.
No, I just wanted to know.
Oh, about
your nerves
when you got yes. So I did feel caught between a rock and a hard place because you're in so much pain you can't even get out of bed. This isn't this is a dangerous substance. And I think I rationalized it by, what were you, 15? She's only 15. I'm doling out the pills.
At first.
That's the problem. I didn't think farther down the road. I didn't think how addictive they were I just didn't think how addictive they were. I mean, I knew they were addictive as a nurse, but I thought, well, I'll just give them to... It was dumb, but...
No, I mean, yeah, I agree that you were in a particularly precarious situation that most people wouldn't ever have to deal with.
But I could have said no, because I did say no to a lot of other things. But also, I was so beaten down. Lyme disease is a horrible disease because the medical community doesn't believe in it. And so you have PhDs telling you you're crazy. This isn't true. And so I felt like I was fighting doctors all the time. And I think at sometimes you just get weak. And unfortunately, like, that was a really big time for me to be weak.
That being said, because, you can blame yourself all you want, but I tend to think that whatever substance I did find would have ended up, because I think I am so predisposed to being an addict or an alcoholic. Like, for example, I didn't drink in high school because I was sick. The first night I drank, it was like, here we go, like blacked out. So no matter what it was, and it's, I think, impossible to think that you could have shielded me from every substance.
Yeah.
I mean, it's unfortunate that it was that and that it's so addictive and it so does cure your pain, like all
effective.
The things.
Yeah.
All the things, but I think it could have been anything and it was going to happen no matter what. Because I wasn't going to never drink, right? So, yeah, it sucks, though. The whole thing sucks. So, it seems like we had a few, before I ever really internalized you telling me that I was an alcoholic, or like the day with the cough syrup, which I think I consider my rock bottom. Mm-hmm. There were incidents before then that you confronted me about my using and drinking.
Yes.
And what was that like for you? Like, just like having a relationship with me during the years that you had suspected I had a problem.
Yeah. Heartbreaking. Helpless feeling. Yeah.
But how did you go, like, wake up every day and just live your life? Because it seems like you'd have these moments of clarity and we'd get in these fights where you'd say, like,
you mean
what
before
are you
you
doing?
moved home?
Yeah, like about college, some of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then also at home for sure. It seemed like we had a few things, like you'd find me taking the pills or that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And so how did you go about it, like, the next day? Were you like, well, maybe what were you telling yourself at that time?
Well, I think there was a progression. I think in the beginning, like when you're in college and that, I thought you were, well, a couple things. Because you never went to high school, when we sent you to college, I felt like I was sending a 12-year-old to college because you had no social experience. And you were still kind of sick. And so, I think, that was awful. It was awful, but, like, I feel like God opened that door for you to go to college and you were meant to step through that, as hard as it was. Like, I had to put so much faith in the Lord that He would take care of you, because that was probably the scariest thing I've ever done. And you made it through, and I did see, like, strange behavior, concerning...
Strange behavior.
concerning behavior. But like, in the beginning, I attributed it to, she's 12. She's
never drank before.
Right.
Yeah.
It's going to take her longer to mature because she missed critical years of development. So I kind of blamed it on that. Or blamed, I think that was a piece of it, for sure. And then you were also still kind of sick. So it's still kind of some Lyme disease stuff here. The headaches, that. So that was probably the college years. And then after you graduated, there were some incidences like when you were in LA. I think I was just...
Oh, yeah, do you want to address the silent treatment allegations? Mom listened to the first episode and she said, and her takeaway was, when did I give you the silent treatment? And I was like, Mom, the day after I was hospitalized, you ignored me the entire day. And she said, I just had nothing to say. I'm like, so the silent treatment.
No, there's a difference.
Okay, explain.
The difference is the silent treatment is when you're trying to be vindictive. Like, you did that. Well, I'm not going to talk to you because I'm going to get back at you by ignoring you. That was not my heart. I was just so disappointed and concerned. And we had talked about stuff over the years. And so I just I had no words. I didn't understand it. I have no words. That's different than the silent treatment.
Gotcha. Now I get it. The way you just articulate it made me get it.
So then after you moved home in what was that, 2015?
Mm-hmm. Probably the worst year of your life.
Yeah, it was. My dad died in July or June, end of June. And then Maggie, you moved home earlier that month, in June or May. Anyway, and that's when I was like, oh, we have a problem.
And what kind of things did you see? Because I don't necessarily remember. I mean, I was in a really toxic relationship.
Gosh. Your behavior was so concerning. It seemed like there was something like serious psychologically wrong. You just would not track it, and your behavior was.
But you didn't necessarily think she's on drugs?
No, I
You knew.
I knew. That's when I finally knew. When you lived with us. Mm-hmm. And I maybe you don't remember this. I remember getting NA pamphlets. Okay. And bringing them to you. And I told some of my friends, and we prayed for you, and they encouraged me. No, this sounds like a problem. Like, get the NA pamphlets and deliver them. So I at least had a couple of friends. But honestly, again, that was another really, really lonely time. And it was such a throwback to how I felt with Lyme disease, where nobody believed me.
Oh, so you would say, she's doing this, and people would say, like, or they're just, like, downplaying?
So, yeah, super lonely knowing that, no, that this is, especially with Dad, because Dad didn't get it at first. And that was really, really hard.
So when do you think Dad, I mean, we'll have him on and hear his perspective, but it seemed like after the cough syrup.
Yeah, that was it.
Yeah.
So that was in like December? No, it's January.
It was January.
January. So 6 months. It was 6 months of living hell. Yeah. Watching someone you love you just didn't recognize who they were.
I'm sorry, Mom.
Yeah.
I know I've made amends to you, but I hope you know, like, I would do anything to have not had any of that happen. But if it didn't, then I wouldn't have gotten better. So
Exactly.
So when I remember at one point during that awful 6 months, confronting you in the garage and saying, like, I think I have a mental illness.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And were you, so at that point you were like, you're a drug addict? Like, or were you like, maybe she does have a mental illness?
Yeah, I thought
Both.
maybe you did.
Okay.
Both. both. Because I'd never lived with a drug addict before. I didn't know, like, what, I don't know. It just, I didn't understand the psychological changes that, I mean, that sounds so stupid, but it's just different. It's different when you're living with somebody versus maybe seeing somebody on drugs or maybe having an uncle or, you know what I mean? But when it's your daughter and she's living with you and yeah. Yeah.
What's crazy is I remember confronting you in the garage and at that point, like, still thinking I had a mental illness.
Yeah.
Because I also was tracking how my life was plummeting.
Yeah.
Like, it felt like every choice I made was bad. And I couldn't get it. I couldn't make a good choice to save my life.
Yeah.
But again, what's something that addiction will do, and I was particularly naive. I had never known an alcoholic well.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I knew of Papa being an alcoholic, but we never lived in the same state. I never witnessed any of that.
Yeah.
And so, and I had every excuse in the world because of having been sick.
Mm-hmm.
Like, no one gets what it's like to have these migraines every day. Yeah, and so, and then I would kind of look at my week and be like, why did I do? None of this is me. You know, like I'd have a moment of clarity of like sobriety when like everything was out of my system or whatever. And that's when I came to you with like, I think I have a mental illness. And it's crazy because again, my addiction was telling me like, keep doing the drugs, that's what's working, that's going to help you. Like, yeah, maybe you have a mental illness, but, you know, if you keep doing all these pills, then, like, it's going to straighten out, and you're going to feel better and, like, be the person that you're supposed to be, kind of. But, yeah, that was rough. And so something interesting I noticed is after Cough Syrup Gate, Dad finally took you seriously. You guys both confronted me on your own. And that's when I actually, like, it actually resonated. Mm-hmm. Because for whatever reason, I could finally see myself outside my body. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, if a friend did that, I would 100% be like, oh my God, lock them up. Like, that's crazy. Or, you know, like, but because it was me and I was an addict, I had every reason in the world to do it. I go to rehab. I have an amazing time. I learned so much. Mm-hmm. But I remember, I think, at least how I describe it to people now, I feel like when I first came home, you still didn't really trust me yet.
No.
Yeah. It took years for us to have, like, what we have now.
Yes. Yes. Well, first of all, I want to say about you going to rehab, well, just about the whole thing, or when we were crying a few minutes ago about you becoming an addict, I feel like God's hand was on you the whole time. Because yes, you did become an addict, but you didn't die.
I should have. No, sometimes I think like drinking the whole bottle and in like 10-minute period, like I should be dead based on all the behavior I partook in. I've always felt like God wants me here for some reason.
Well, and here's what else happened. You went to rehab for months, and you had therapy 24/7 for months. And because of that unusual adolescence that you had, you needed that. Like, you had a counselor, but it just wasn't enough. That experience was so beyond having a counselor once a week.
Well, I don't want to throw that counselor under the bus. I love her to this day. But something I will say is I confessed to her once. I remember maybe like a month before the cough syrup, I told her, like, I steal pills from people. And I said, and I'm going to do it again. Like, I know where to get them. I'm going to do it again. And she was kind of like, okay. Like, but wasn't like, hey, that's concerning. Maybe that is harming yourself or others. Maybe I should tell your parents, kind of thing.
Wow.
So I remember being shocked. And earlier that year, I had confessed to some people, like my roommate at the time and her friend visiting, because I think I was like running low and I was nervous or I didn't know. And I go, guys, like, I've been stealing Vicodin from people. Like, I don't know what to do. And they were kind of just like, oh. like we were driving on the 280 or whatever.
Yeah. Wow.
And so it's like I'd come forward to these, so it's like I had those, somewhere deep inside I was desperate for help.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or wanted someone to say, stop, that's concerning.
Yeah.
But then neither of them did, and so it was kind of like, I don't know.
Yeah. Interesting.
Because I couldn't trust myself. That's why I confessed.
Yeah.
I really was looking for someone to say, like, hey, that's crazy.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. That's interesting. Little part of the story. So, yeah, so I got an amazing amount of therapy and, like, the pain management program, healing migraines naturally, doing all that kind of stuff. I was training for the half marathon, which was really good. And I had gotten a schedule. They woke me up at 6, you know, like all that kind of stuff was severely lacking in my life. And I remember at the family week, you seemed very kind of like nonplussed. Like I was like, Mom, like I'm an addict, and you're like, I know. Like, or, you know, like you were kind of like, you were like, yeah, like that tracks, you know. And then Dad bawling and being like, I had no idea.
Yeah.
And that was kind of sad to watch.
Yeah.
Because it also made me feel like, has he not been paying attention?
Yeah.
Like,
well, maybe because I had a parent who'd gone to treatment, went to AA, and I knew like, yeah, that happens. That happens to people. And there's programs that help them. And it doesn't make them a bad person. I don't know. I think because of my childhood experience, I was more familiar than he was.
well, there's something about mothers and daughters, though. Like, I love Dad. I think Dad and I have such a special relationship. He's, like, my favorite person in the world. Like, anyone who knows me knows how much I love my dad. But I've always felt like with you and me, like, you know me like the back of your hand. Mm-hmm. Like a mother and a daughter. Yeah. Like, I came from you. Yeah. You cared for me those years when I was sick. Mm-hmm. You're the only person that defended me. You know? And so it is a little different. I think you're more in tune with me, maybe. Or you can sense my energy even, and that's when you're like, something's wrong with her, you know?
Sure.
Whereas Dad, and the other thing is I think Dad is you guys are both optimists. Dad tends toward the delusional. Or, you know, he would choose to believe, like, oh, she's just in college. You know, like any excuse he would want. Yeah. As opposed to actually looking at it like, okay. Yeah. Remember
well, you can talk to him about that.
Yeah, we'll talk to him about it and find out the truth. So what do you think it took for you to trust me again?
Just time. And you showing up and being an honest and accountable person.
When do you remember, like,
well, after rehab, like, you're not drinking anymore, and you have had a lot of information, and you've learned a lot about yourself. But I think there are still habits that still remain, and so if you've lived with someone, you're just not going to trust them until they earn it back.
Do you remember, like, a day or a moment or a sequence of events that led to you trusting me again?
I think it was just time of watching you be who you used to be.
And when you say who I used to be, you mean when I was a kid?
Yeah.
Who did you see me as then? We're just going to fish for a second. I do that with Brad. You'll see. I go, but he said I was cute, right? Like, I'm such a sucker for compliments. But this is more about, like, okay, who did you... Yeah. How far did I get from the path?
Yeah. Oh, so far. That's what's so heartbreaking about addiction. And people who've lived through it with a loved one, they get it. Like, you can see it in their eyes. Like, yeah, I get that. It's just a motivated, smart, quick, caring, honest. All of those good attributes that disappear.
Yeah. It's kind of crazy to think that how often we would choose like the high or the being gone or whatever we're seeking in the substance when it makes us such terrible people along the way.
I know.
Like, is it really worth it? Like, it's like feeling whatever you're feeling in that moment worth not being smart anymore?
Yeah.
Like, no. But again, as an addict, you don't rationalize that.
Well, I don't think you can rationalize. I think the power of the substance takes over.
Yeah.
That's why it's so awful.
Yeah, it is. So, how did you feel when you learned? Because you've been Dragon, my musical, my pet dragon. You've been my number one fan from day one. Josh and I writing the songs and sending them to you.
Yeah.
What was it like to see that? Because it's based on kind of my story of being sick as a teenager and it leading to an opiate addiction. In Dragon, it manifests as a dragon, so we have some magical realism. But when you first saw it presented, what were your thoughts?
Well, I think when you first told me about it, I was thrilled. And again, I saw how God used everything for good, because that's what he promises. Like, we're not promised to not go through suffering and hard things, but he uses everything for good. And we might not see that this side of heaven, but I get to. So it's amazing. And the first time seeing it, I loved it. I just love everything about it. But when when they came to do it in Dallas and you sang the lead, that was really hard. Because that's when I was like, oh, there she is. You know, just having not your face and your voice in it, just like, this is amazing.
Yeah, because you're like, oh, it's happening to someone else. And it's like, oh, it's happening to her. Like,
Yeah. So, yeah.
I remember, so when I have spoken before at different meetings, I referred to, especially on step 2, which is came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. So my 2 kind of definitively spiritual moments that I've had in my entire life happened, one with you, one with Dad. And one of them was after our first performance of Dad. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
We'd done the show. Everyone loved it. I could see how much it impacted people. And in a real way, not like, good job, oh, your little show's so good. Like, I could see it on the people's faces, crying, clapping, like, really, like, it seemed like people got it. Like, got what we were trying to say and what the point of it was. Why my story mattered, right? And we went to a dinner after, and mind you, I'd had very little sleep that week, which tends to lead to a spiritual experience sometimes if you're a little tired. And we were sitting there at dinner, and I was just struck by God saying, this is why it happened. Because a big problem that, wow, we're being so open on this, like, I always kind of thought God hated me. I mean, not as a little kid. As a little kid, I just believed, and I was like, oh, like, please help me be popular. Oh, look, I am. You know, like, please have this boy like me. He does. You know, like, whatever stupid. But at the time, it mattered so much. And then with getting sick and everything, it started to feel like, okay, am I God's experiment?
Yeah.
And it's not, and the thing that's weird is I haven't ever turned on my faith or stopped believing. It was more a matter of, does God believe in me? Or can I see the writing on the wall and I'm meant to die and ruin my parents' life and like, whatever. And so after we did the show, I remember feeling God say to me, this is why. It wasn't because I hated you. It was because I loved you so much and you were the right person to do this. So that was a cool moment for sure. What would you tell somebody who is a parent of someone that's obviously struggling with a substance disorder? Like, what worked for you and what didn't work? Even today, what works for you in our relationship? And when you started trusting me and all that? If you could give someone, like, a cheat sheet, like...
Well, I don't think I was unusual in that I felt alone and nobody saw what I saw. I think that might be a typical story. Because there's so much, people just are so in denial. And
People are so self-absorbed, too.
well, and you know what? It's scary. It's scary to tell somebody, like, even your daughter, like, you have a problem. I don't know.
Well, again, that's what we're trying to change on my podcast.
Yeah. So,
Because why is being an addict such a bad thing? If it really is just a disease like cancer, would you shame someone for having cancer? Or would you say, how can I help you? You seem to have cancer. Or, you know, like...
Yeah, for some reason, people don't want to admit that there's a problem when there obviously is.
It's because there's a moral implication that person's amoral, undisciplined, bad.
Maybe, yeah. Yeah. Like, I could never raise a kid who was a drug addict. That's for sure a lot of it. I've kind of forgotten because you're older now, but that's so motivating for parents. Yeah, stand your ground. Don't enable. Don't enable. And the most loving thing you can do is to fight every day until that person gets help.
We had really 10 years that were awful between us. And then even a few years after getting sober, still, like, me trying to prove to you that, like, okay, I can be a good person. I can be the Maggie that you knew when I was a kid, you know? But I think if people see us now, they think we're the type of mother-daughter, like, oh, they're just besties, and oh, they're shopping together, and oh, they're just laughing all the time, and which is true of us. I'd want to encourage people, though, that it was not like we're not the typical, like, oh, mother-daughter besties who never had any drama. Like, we've had to come a long way.
Yeah. Well, I feel like I've said this to you before, and I was crying when I say it, but we went through a war together. And I think there's a bond that's created when you go through really hard things with somebody. And so, yeah.
It makes it too. I'm just glad we're not on other sides of the picket line anymore.
Yeah.
I love you, Mom. Thank you for doing this, and thank you for inspiring us.
Of course.